You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo. Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
You know, this is the nature of what we do. We overanalyze things. I do 5 days a week, and we talk about things that you care about on this show, on other shows here, on Jake's show. In the morning, we got 9 hours of local coverage, and inevitably, we will go overboard and overanalyze absolutely everything. So you tell me, I'll go around and take this straw poll of national NBA coverers, personalities. And for the most part, except for a couple of dudes, I don't know who they were. Is it Chandler Parsons on FanDuel? Like one dude just said, hey, I haven't watched the Pacers all year. The Bucks in 6. Okay, great. Where's my check? I mean, hell, I can do that. And basically, that's normally the protocol nationally. I haven't watched them all year, but, yeah, the Bucks in 6. But I kind of wonder this, and I mentioned this to Jake. I talked to our executive producer, Todd Meyer, about something similar a little bit earlier. You're asking me for a feel for this first-round series. And I have watched every second, every possession, every game. And I realize what this team has done since the very beginning of December. Go all the way back to that Hornets disaster when I was at Tom's Watch Bar, Tom's Watch Bar, watching the Hornets. I'm with Lindsay and with Gina. So the girls are there and we're hanging out. And this place is just opening, right? So we're watching, and it was an absolute mess. Absolute mess, the game. And since that point in time, and especially after the All-Star break, this team, record-wise, they've been fantastic. You get no argument. I think top 4. Top 4 in the NBA? Zero argument. But those of us that really do care, and that's why you have us here, and I say it all the time, we really do care about what you care about. That's our focus. So do we have a tendency to maybe be swamped or overwhelmed by the fact that we do overanalyze every single possession? It's weird because I've done this for a while. But regarding Miles, I'll give you a great example of this. I find myself, because I've been a supporter over the years, and it's funny how this all evolved with Miles. It evolved. This goes all the way back to Michael Grady being on the midday here. It was the off-season, and it was Michael, and I think some others. I don't know necessarily if they're on the station at the time, but they were making fun of Miles because he was mixing in yoga in the off-season. And I said, hey, listen, enough's enough. I know once upon a time when he was drafted, Larry Bird said he will go down in history as one of the greatest Pacers. And you know what? He may still go down in history as one of the greatest Pacers. And there was a point in time when it was me and my friend Greg, and that was it in the corner of Miles Turner. And I can't lie, going all the way back to that moment, I felt compelled to defend him because there were so many jackasses out there. And you know me, if I'm not participating in jackassery, I'm battling against it. I'm fighting it. So that's how all that evolved. And then everywhere I would go, hey, I told you so, and hey, it stinks. And, this is going back to the days of both he and Sabonis on the same team. Well, he goes over and he stands in the corner and doesn't do anything. And my counter was, Well, I mean, it's Nate Bjorkgren's offense, right? I mean, this guy doesn't know anything from anything. Do you think he goes over there and stands because he wants to or because he's told to do it? You tell me what you believe here. I mean, you're supposed to be basketball savvy. You're in the state of Indiana, and that's not savvy suggesting that you just go over there and stand. He's not me on Monday night pickup at St. Luke's. Now, he's a professional. I mean, he's told to do it. That's what he does. And I said, listen, if they get out of this too big situation here, then you're going to really see him come to light. And really, it took that, and it took bouncing the ass of Malcolm Brogdon, who's dribble, layup, dribble, layup. And high ball screens did not work with him. Why? Because he was not a willing passer, nor was he a good one. He ate the stinking ball when he got it in his possession. Fast forward. Sabonis traded to Sacramento, and believe me, nobody knew about Domas Sabonis before me. I had to watch all these late-night Gonzaga games, and you know the story with me and Gonzaga and Blake, my son in Gonzaga. For some reason, when he was really little, I think it was because he liked the mascot, the Bulldogs. I swear I had to watch every Gonzaga game from, basically 2008, 2009, until the past couple of years. It wasn't because I was jumping on the bandwagon. It was because, well, wait a minute, we're going to watch Gonzaga in San Francisco tonight. Oh, yeah, thanks a lot. That thing tips at 11:45 on a Thursday night. Thanks, buddy. But I did. And we did. So I knew about Sabonis before anybody else knew about Sabonis, other than his last name and the fact that he had a heritage and his dad was really good, even at an elder statesman status in the NBA. So he gets traded, and that stunk because he's a good player, but you bring in Tyrese Halliburton, who is, as I bring up all the time, an orchestrator. He's a willing passer. Not only is he a willing passer, but he is an elite-level passer. And believe me, there's a difference. You can be a willing passer, and you can not be great at it. You can be good at it, maybe not turn it over, but you're willing, right? You're willing to pass up trying to find your opportunity to make a better opportunity for somebody else. And that's what Halliburton does. And Halliburton comes in and really transitions Miles into the player that we have seen and the player that you know right now. I think without Halliburton, Miles is still that guy that everybody loves to hate, but you have seen the not-so-subtle transition with the fan base around here from saying, oh, yeah, okay, it's beyond yoga and Legos and what he's wearing to the game and his eyewear and his hairstyle. It's beyond that. He is really a big man for where this game is being played right now. You got to be able to step out, and you got to be able to hit a three. It is not the 1990s. Like, I have to argue all the time. I had to argue with this hillbilly from Kentucky about, well, he's got to have back-to-the-basket moves and post-up moves. Well, again, if you look at what you have in Siakam, that's enough. Siakam occupies the back-to-the-basket mode, the paint touches. Your big guys have to step out, face up, and shoot the three. That's what you want with him and this team, and Halliburton has really transitioned him to play at his highest level. I would guess Miles, if he were ever on the show again, would say the same thing. But what I'm saying by this, I found myself over all these years, I don't even watch the basketball. I watch what 33 does in his movement. And when he's open and when he isn't, his just because you and I, not you and I, but you know what I mean. Just because we always had this back and forth dialogue on it. So I got used to watching basketball being played off the ball, which is really weird and sometimes is not any fun. But that's what I mean about this. I think sometimes we end up overanalyzing everything. And I kind of wonder if we're in that moment right now. Because locally, like me and like Jake and like others, you're a bit apprehensive, even without Damian Lillard, who is going to miss, as Shams reported earlier today, sometime in the postseason. They suggest that he could return sometime in the postseason, but hopefully he doesn't return until next year, hopefully healthy in next year, because you don't want to see him. And if you see him, it's probably going to be in a different round, and you know the effects of if the Bucs get a chance to put him out there again in a different round. That means the Pacers are incredibly disappointing. And that's the other aspect. The fact that they have expectations. A year ago, it was the Mike Damone. Whatever happens, your toes are still tapping. You know what? It's a feel good. It's a feel good. Everything was great. No matter what. You could get over the lack of defense. You could get over all of this. Everything was good because there were no expectations. Now you have heavy expectations. So maybe you overanalyze it because of that. I just know this. You look nationally, and you get a group, and you kind of wonder on the other side of it how much they have watched the Pacers, and certainly they haven't watched the Pacers more than we have. So it's either the case of we're overanalyzing because that's all we pay attention to, or they're not analyzing enough because all they're doing is sniffing the rear end of the Lakers and Luka deals and the Knicks and Brunson being healthy and Boston trying to repeat. Maybe that's the case. But as I mentioned, when people ask me, do you want the Pistons or you want the Bucks? I have said I'll take the Bucks because they are without one of their big-time players. And that's Damian Lillard. But does it concern me because I make that call? Yes. Why? Because Giannis is playing at an incredibly high level right now. Like, I have the stinking nightmares, seriously, of Giannis going to the free throw line about 25 times a game in this series. That's a nightmare. I mean, having to sit through Zach Zarba and his hair and just whistle after whistle. And Ed Malloy, whistle after whistle. I'm going to justify this call. You're in your back and forth dialogue with Ed Grimley. Malloy. So I do have these nightmares. So I guess as it translates here, it's going to be one or the other. You know, either it's us because we're in it, we're invested in it, you care about it, and you watch it so much. And it's those nationally. And again, you're probably talking 85% of the people out there nationally that cover the NBA believe the Pacers are going to move on. And move on, I think, from what I've read, in relative ease. 6 games? To me, that's relative ease. 5 games? And I look at the way that they played, and I think this is going to be an absolute haggle until the very end. That's why I put so much priority on these first 2, and especially number 1. I hate the fact that they play at 1 o'clock on Saturday. I don't know why. Yeah, I do know why. Because it's out of the ordinary. 1 o'clock on Saturday? Who the hell plays at 1 o'clock on Saturday? Oh, yeah, it's the team that the NBA believes is going to be the least watched normally of any of these first-round series. We'll put that in the 1 o'clock window on ESPN. I don't want to see them play down. Like I've said all along, I want to see the Pacers ramp up. And the other problem is they really haven't ramped up. Now, they've continued to win, but they've been playing like you and I at the end of games. They're down 27. Again, with the backup to the backup to the backups all in. And again, I'm not taking anything away. These guys are still really good at what they do, but it was the backups to the backups to the backups in the NBA. Like, my hope is that we see more of the Denver game on the road when you could tell it was prioritized to win. It was not only prioritized to win, but you wanted to show everybody that you were capable of doing it against a good team here, a good playoff-worthy team. Now, granted, right after that game, Denver ends up firing their general manager and their head coach. So you can look at it two different ways. Hey, the Pacers got that done. They did that. Or everything was already so whacked out in Denver that was kind of the straw that broke everything. So what's it going to be? National lack of recognition, lack of understanding, lack of watching in general, or us, simply put, doing what we do here locally. And believe me, you're fortunate to have it. Other markets don't have this. What you end up doing is just putting, can you imagine if you just had to put on, like, I hate to say it, but ESPN radio all day? Or some of this other crap that just don't give 1 ounce of crap about what you care about here? It's a big deal. So we end up getting 9 hours a day of us talking about the Pacers, and this is what we like, this is what we don't like. I went at the end of the show, and I broke down basically probably, 8 players, maybe even 9 players, and what it's going to be necessary for them to do. And believe me, there is nobody out there at all that wants to see this team have success, because I'm the one that said, yeah, run this bad boy back. I like it. Run it back. Let's see it grow together. And you know what? Kevin Pritchard, Chad Buchanan did just that. Ran it back. Going to see it grow together. So coming up on Saturday at 1 o'clock, 12:30, coverage begins right here on The Fan. That's when we begin to find out whether or not that was the call. And again, I'm not taking anything away from a 50-win regular season. That is a big deal. But always the bigger deal is going to be what you do in the postseason. What you do when it really matters to everybody. Nationally, they believe that the Pacers are by far the favorite. And you may get a little skepticism here locally just because we watch it so much. So it's the lack of understanding and watching versus those of us that watch every single second, every single possession. All right, we'll go over that. I'll give you my prediction a little bit later on as well. Coming up, Tony East in the 5 o'clock hour is going to join us. We'll go over some of those numbers, some of my thoughts on what needs to occur for this team to move on. Yeah, the expectations are certainly there. I was actually chatting a little bit earlier about, all right, so what's to happen if they don't live up to the expectations? If they don't get out of round number 1, I think it's going to be easier for them to make decisions that we believe to be very difficult right now. Does that make sense to you? Like those decisions about keeping or parting with guys that you really like. I think it'd be easier to make a Miles call. I think it'd be easier to make a lot of things if you disappoint. Why? Because disappointment, that will foster, that will drive change. Now, again, it's level of disappointment. You might feel the same way about the Eastern Conference semifinals. But there's without a doubt the expectation is for the Pacers to move on. That's why you brought them all back. That was the expectation that was really put down by the organization. So disappointing to say the least if you don't make it out of round number 1. Even if you're going against one of the better players of all time, certainly one of the best players in the NBA right now, and playing at that particular level. And a team that probably is still incredibly salty, whether it was the whole weird-ass basketball thing in Milwaukee last year that's still funny. I got a really good video on TikTok. Can you believe I just said that? I have a really good video on TikTok. Does somebody want to kick my ass right now? Hey, I have a really cool video on TikTok from a year ago that has the Ghetto Boys and the Mind, and I'm really bad at this, Mind playing tricks on me against Giannis losing his in the aftermath of that game in Milwaukee. Well, I guess what you want to call it was game ball gate. I have a really good video, cool video on TikTok, everybody. I'm a dork. But salty from that, salty from the first round a year ago. And as I mentioned yesterday, we're talking to Eddie Gill about this from Pacers TV, Pacers Radio, the former guard in the NBA, that I think Milwaukee is going to bring out a level of physicality that maybe we haven't seen in the past from them. It goes without saying, and certainly I haven't heard anybody in Milwaukee mention any of this, but I would seem to think that those in Milwaukee believe the Pacers to be soft. And my belief is that that is something that they will try to exploit. There was no doubt, had it been the Detroit Pistons, they were going to try to do that. I call it muddying up the water. You know, you want to disrupt the pace. And with the Pacers, if you're able to disrupt the pace and their offensive good feel, then you can really mess with them. We know that to be true. And again, it's not as drastic in terms of how it equates to them defensively as it was a year ago, because they had to push the pace and then had to score. Basically, they were forcing the opposition to be able to play at a similar pace and scoring of the game because they knew that their defense wasn't going to live up. Their defense is a little bit better. And maybe I'm not giving them enough credit about being a little bit better and describing it. So their defense is better. So you don't have to play at that level offensively as you did, for example, a year ago. But I would suggest you never, ever take your foot off the pedal. And I think physically speaking, that's what the Bucks are going to try to do. Maybe not the same level, maybe not the same type of disruption as the Detroit Pistons, although, believe me, with Portis and even Giannis acts like a jackass too. But Portis, most definitely. Hey, listen, if you remember this, I love the regulator. I love me some James Johnson. There is one true reason why James Johnson's on this team, and it was because of Milwaukee, if you remember a year ago. Don't be jacking with our guys. So they bring in a guy who rarely, if ever, plays, but he regulates. He regulates what's going on that bench with that team, with that personnel, and he regulates what is going on with the opposition. Don't be jacking with our guys. Warren G and Nate Dogg type of stuff. He regulates. And if you remember correctly, the starting point of that regulation was a year ago with the Milwaukee Bucks. All right, we got that for you, 239-1070. Email address, jmv1075thefan.com. I saw where Nico Harrison, quote, has no regrets after the Luka trade. Believe me, you can't say that you do because you're going to get buried even more than you did because you made that deal happen. Let's just face it. The time is going to be short for this guy. And he's going to be lucky to ever find a gig again. That's how bad that was. That's how overwhelmingly bad that was. Yet another NBA story. Pacers getting set for the NFL draft. We got conversation about that. Greg Rakestraw, the Colts post-game show host, joins us at the bottom of the hour. We'll do that, some high school, some college, too. Braden Smith is back, as we found out yesterday via his Instagram. Bobby Buckets, Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network, the former Boilermaker guard, to discuss the expectations for the Boilers coming up next year with the return and those that are now going to be a part of it and also those that are no longer a part of it. Cam Heide, Miles Colvin. Buckets, 4 o'clock hour, Tony East, first round set, Bucks Pacers, game 1 coming up on Saturday at 1 o'clock, 12:30 coverage here on The Fan. Tony East, full-scale discussion on that and both the good, and I think we understand the good, but what could happen in the form of change if these expectations aren't met. Tony East coming up after 5. Still have Indy Ignite tickets to give away? No? Nothing today?
Nothing today.
Naked? We are completely nude of stuff to give away. believe me, I dig being nude, James, but not in this capacity. I've got to have something to give away here. Can we give away my action figure that SPT created yesterday?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You know what? That doesn't look too bad, does it? Does it look like that did he give me more muscles than I have?
I haven't actually seen it. Did you put a picture out of it?
I have sent that out via the social media platform X. My good friend Kurt Casper down in Center Grove said that they really yoked me up. I would counter with, I believe I'm yoking myself up right now.
That is really realistic.
I think it is too. I'm starting to look like that.
Yeah.
Did you know when I said that the tube socks in the front of the pants right there? Is there a filter on there for that? Because I love it. I need more of that. The tube socks in the front of the pants filter.
I like the tub of cottage cheese they got you with.
How about that, man? Hey, the cocktail.
Yeah.
In the left hand, the microphone in the right hand. You know what? Coming up in the month of May, I can't even begin to tell you how much fun we're going to have. Because today I have learned of a new wrinkle. A new wrinkle that we're all going to be able to enjoy together. I don't even know how I'm going to be able to handle it. I'm going to have somebody make sure I make good decisions. Do I have somebody like that? Like good decision, because sometimes I can make faulty decisions. I'm going to need a voice of reason in the month of May, especially on race weekend. Is anybody out there a voice of reason? Would anybody like the gig of being my voice of reason? Because I'm going to need it. Believe me. I'll explain that wrinkle coming up a little bit later on. Quick, before we hit a break, too, I wanted to shout out my good friend Alex Sylvester, both Perry Meridian and Marian University, and John Licklider. Last night I played at St. Luke's. It was the first time since the 1990s I did 2 pickup sessions on the same day. I feel great. What a great group last night at St. Luke's on the north side. Great group. So I want to thank those. I don't know if the people at St. Luke's knew, but we opened it up. The group played. It was awesome, and I cannot wait to do it again. But thanks to Alex and to John for inviting me in. It was one hell of a time. I felt fantastic. Other than having to drive like 45 minutes to get my ass back home, it was a fantastic time. Had a great time. Good dudes. You know that dudes play basketball before. I think all these guys played at some level collegiately, but you know they play when they yell out flare screens to you. You go, okay, well, this guy's playing. Normally I turn around and hit somebody's armpit on a screen, but, man, it was fun, man. It was really a good time. So thanks to John and to Alex for that invite last night. Hopefully we can do that again. All right, Greg Rakestraw coming up at the bottom of the hour. As I mentioned, Tony East after 5 buckets here in the 4 o'clock hour. Just getting started, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The return of Braden Smith. Buckets coming up at the top of the hour. Tony East, first round Bucks Pacers concerned for the blue and gold. We'll talk about those concerns. The good, the bad, and what is life with the Bucks going into this thing without Damian Lillard? Tony East coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Do not go anywhere. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he does a variety of things, including the Colts post-game show host and caller of the JMV Takeover each and every Saturday night. Greg Rakestraw joins us. Yet another fantastic call this past Saturday. Well done.
Well, thank you, sir. You know, I always try to keep it topical if I could, and since you enjoyed a couple of days off on Thursday and Friday,
yes,
I thought it was appropriate.
Huey Lewis and the News. That is a forgotten classic from that band right there. A couple of days off.
Well, I think we can celebrate the entire catalog when it comes to Huey Lewis and the News. So
we can. Did everybody in the world have sports that were around you in Southern Indiana, down by Lanesville back in the day?
I had my cassette copy of that, John. Absolutely.
So, what do you think? What do you think was more saturated in the 1980s with those that had the album? Back in Black, AC/DC, or Sports by Huey Lewis and the News?
I would say a slight nod in our area to AC/DC, but both of those were quite popular.
And no doubt about that. Greg Rakestraw is with us. So, you look at the Colts and the draft. Disappointing if they don't go after with their first-round selection a tight end, knowing what they know, or if the board dictates otherwise, will you understand?
I think both of those things to be true, John. I want it to be Tyler Warren. I don't think he's going to be there at 14. I'd like to see the Colts not give up the farm, but move up a little bit to go get him. I know the Loveland kid is also a target out of Michigan that could be available at 14. There's a couple of possible selections in round number 2 where you could trade back later in round number 1. But again, to me, Warren is kind of the obvious fit. And really it's going to be how many teams identify tight end as a need in front of the Colts. Are the Colts willing to, again, go against the grain of what they have typically done and move up to get a player in the first round? So if the board doesn't work out, I would understand, but I would still be disappointed at the same time.
Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What do you think they would have to do to move up? And would you expect them to give themselves an opportunity to do so if, at least on the surface, Warren is out of their reach initially?
Right. I mean, again, it all depends on what spot they feel they have to get to. You know, I have seen him linked at 8. I have seen him potentially linked at 7. And so do I think they have to give another first-round pick to get him? Do I think that's probably too high of a price to pay? Yeah, I could see that being the case. And again, I'm probably not a price that Chris Ballard is willing to pay. If you're talking about moving up 3 spots, I think you can look at same-day draft capital, or in other words, a second-day draft pick, a third-day draft pick, and potentially make that move. And so it's probably a matter if they can move up without giving up an additional first-round pick. I think that's a move the Colts would do.
All right, right now, and we're talking about mid-April, and nobody cares. No decision has to be made. But if you were a betting man, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson in week number 1, as of right now, what you're thinking today?
I would probably lean towards Daniel Jones. But again, I do think it's going to be an open competition. So I do think it's going to be determined by meetings that take place when OTAs really get going, or off-season pro workouts as of the week of April the 21st. You know, you're not going to really learn anything about the quarterback position in terms of competition until, you know, preseason practice at the end of July. But if you ask me right now, I'd probably go with Daniel Jones.
So can we, let's just say hypothetically that's going to be accurate. So they're hanging their livelihood, those decision makers at the Colts, in the future, not just the short term in the moment in week 1, but in the long term of staying with this team even longer than 9 years for Chris Ballard. But you're going to hang that on what we have seen from Daniel Jones so far. That's kind of incredible to me, given the circumstances.
John, what's the other alternative?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, what it does, Greg, it just even more magnifies how big of a bust Richardson will be if that is the ultimate decision.
Again, I think Jones has been the guy that has had better play over the course of his career than Richardson. It's not exactly a high bar.
Yeah.
Again, in a perfect scenario, would they like to see Anthony Richardson make this quantum leap from year 2 to year 3 and give him the football? Absolutely. But I really think that long-term planning for everybody involved out there extends about as far as December 31st of 2025. In other words, you're going to hand the football to the guy that you feel gives you the best chance to win right now. And as it stands right now, I'd go with Daniel Jones.
I will say this, again, this is just in April and a call that you're making right now that a lot of other people would agree with, but it's not like that Anthony Richardson hasn't given them every reason to this point to make that type of decision. And it's also not like, Greg, that they haven't made a difficult and somewhat confusing decision on Richardson already. So sure. I guess if you're going to cap it on Richardson here a little bit, that would be the ultimate capper right there.
So what I would say is this, and whether it's your show or other ones that I've been asked about this, in terms of why it was Daniel Jones to come in and compete with Richardson, again, he was the guy that played the style that was most similar. He was the guy that, again, you didn't have to worry about changing your offense, like you did with Joe Flacco last year. In other words, you can run the quarterback, and if option A gets hurt, then you go to option B. And so that's the way to go about doing it. Again, I think it's going to be an open competition. And I frankly think that competition starts in the first week of off-season practices and workouts in terms of in April. But it really gets magnified when people will be out there at Colts training camp at the end of July and throughout the month of August. But we'll see what happens until proven otherwise in terms of workouts, practice, etc. The guy to me would be Jones now, but it will be a true competition.
So Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Before I let you go, a couple of college notes. One is the transfer portal, and we'll start in Bloomington where today, evidently, Lamar Wilkerson, who was a coveted guy out of the transfer portal from Sam Houston State, is on the inbound to Bloomington. What in now off-season number 1 for Darren DeVries, he has done through the transfer portal to this point. What do you think about that? And then obviously return of Braden Smith, and then the exit, and then the inbound that's going on in West Lafayette also to this point, Greg. Your thoughts?
So what I would say is this. In terms of IU, maybe I am slightly surprised that it has kind of been the mid-major all-stars likely so far, other than obviously Coach DeVries' own son. But at the same time, I know what the guy did at Drake, and I am not underselling what was a one-year turnaround at West Virginia when they went from 9 to 19 wins and what was a very good league in the Big 12 and did so with the guy they thought would be, again, their key piece in terms of the coach's kid. And so I'm going to say, all right, let's go out and see exactly how these pieces are coming together. And so I'm kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in year number 1. He is going a route that so many other coaches have done so successfully. And let's face it, last year, Indiana went the route of getting kids that had more of a major college pedigree. How did it work out? It didn't. So let's say, all right, you go more of a mid-major route in terms of getting those guys that are really successful. Let's see if the pieces all fit together in his system. As far as Braden Smith is concerned, I think this was the obvious expected result. It is almost like we would talk about guys a handful of years ago who would enter their name into the NBA draft, even though you knew there was no chance on God's green earth they were going to be a draft pick. But it was just kind of a matter of getting that feedback, that impetus from scouts as to what it was going to look like. Well, the same thing here. When you are dealing with nothing but one-year contracts in terms of name, image, and likeness, you will at least kind of take the temperature of the room, if nothing else. But the chance for Braden, being an in-state kid who is beloved in West Lafayette, to play all 4 years of his career at Purdue, and get paid handsomely during the process, that should not come as a surprise to anybody.
Hey, also, before I let you go, college baseball. What have you noticed? I know you're somebody that follows the schedule as well with the teams in the area and otherwise. What have you noticed so far about this season of baseball?
Obviously it's not the same level of year, for our Sycamores. To their credit, I want to say they have played 4 Missouri Valley Conference baseball weekends, and they have won 3 of them. And given the fact that basically there's, I want to say, 5 or 6 guys that are back from last year, and it's literally a handful of at-bats. It is a handful of innings, and that's it. It is a completely different team and a completely different coaching staff. So are they the national level team they were last year? No. They still are an upper half team in Missouri Valley. That's pretty impressive. And again, for Indiana and Purdue, there's this second level everybody is trying to get to in terms of the Big Ten, because there is the influx in the last 15 years of new stadiums and Big Ten network and overall television money that has upped the level of play in the league. But now you've got these West Coast teams. And so the Big Ten Conference got even better. And so far, Indiana and Purdue's been pretty competitive. And that's been pretty fun to see.
So Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Maybe whatever on Saturday night? What are you feeling about whatever? I know it's a whatever weekend. I don't always have to play the role of what they do on the weekends at B1057. But if you're thinking about whatever, anything come to mind initially?
Well, I think the most whatever request I had ever made on the show is when you played Egyptian Lover for me.
Yes.
When you bring, hip hop from 40 years ago.
Right.
That's truly whatever. I would imagine my mood is going to be dictated by how the Indy 11 do that night against the Charleston Battery. And it may also be about how my mood is if I have to do the broadcast outside in 60 degrees and rain. So that could affect my phone call as well on Saturday night, too.
Speaking of which, are you going to join me tomorrow?
I will join you if you like to be a phone at some point tomorrow. So what John's referring to, kids, is that he'll be broadcasting live from the mic because the Indy 11 start their Open Cup run. They take on Miami FC. If you can't make it down, it is a 7:30 match. You can stream it. If you're a Paramount Plus subscriber, you can see it there. Of course, last year, the Indy 11 made it to the semifinals of this event, and basically they would likely see a Major League Soccer team in the next round if they were to beat Miami, a team they have already beaten 3-1 earlier this season. So, and that, a midweek match, gives John an excuse to come hang in my world at Carroll Stadium. Now, not surprisingly, I'm like double booked tomorrow. I will be there for the match, but I'm rolling in at like 7 or 7:15. So, want me to join you over the phone, I can easily do that.
May have to have a preview from you tomorrow, okay, buddy?
I will buzz you tomorrow. See you, bud.
You got it. Greg Rakestraw, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm at Carroll Stadium tomorrow. That is the Indy 11 in Miami. I shall be out there, and we'll talk it up, have a good time as we normally do. Actually on the road tomorrow at Carroll Stadium, and then on Thursday on the road again as well. So a couple of opportunities for you to join me. Coming up this week. Next week, by the way, is going to be busy. I got to thank everybody out there for so willingly wanting to be my voice of reason like David George. I don't know about Litzy being the voice of reason right there. Jim McCann, thank you guys for wanting to be the race day weekend voice of reason. I've got that wrinkle coming up, informationally speaking, too. Buckets, 4 o'clock hour, the return of Braden Smith, the Boilermakers of the transfer portal. I mentioned IU active in the transfer portal. I'll get back to that story on the other side in Tony East with Bucks and Pacers. Round number 1 of the NBA postseason conversation after 5. Sit tight, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
JMV.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This is a hell of a question to ask from John Easter. Will there be Drakkar tomorrow at the mic since the Indy 11, they're playing Miami? Or is that only for Heat fans? Yeah, I think Drakkar, I think it's only for Heat fans during the LeBron era. Remember those two dudes back during the LeBron era here that rocked the two yoked up dudes here? You know, these guys were absolutely soaked in Drakkar. This goes back, hell, at least, 12 years, I think? 11 years, maybe. JMV Richardson is training with Josh Allen, so I anticipate a huge leap. He's training with one of the best quarterbacks in the league and is going to help him tremendously, I hope. Yeah, everybody should hope that. James Chad Buchanan, Thursday. Want to do that Thursday? I know that I'm on the road on Thursday, but we can certainly get Chad on the show Thursday.
We can work him in for sure.
Pacers GM Chad Buchanan coming up on Thursday. I'll make that announcement right here. J-Law says, I will be your adult supervision on Carb Day if you, in turn, will reciprocate. I'm not allowed to be at the track by myself due to previous incidents. Thanks. I got your back, brother. Jeff checks in. I think the Pacers should start James Johnson just to mess with the Bucks a little. Well, they are the reason. Remember, that was basically it. And they say, we got to get somebody. And it's funny. You may say, why is that necessary? I think you can also have that being necessary for how you deal with jackassery, both on the outside and on the inside, if that makes sense to you. So, yeah. So then AJ Store dude's on the move again. So St. John's, Wisconsin, Kansas, and now Ole Miss. Good Lord Almighty. He's been to more schools than me, James. You know how much of a feat that is? I was Vincennes, UIndy, and Indiana State. So now, with this move to Ole Miss, AJ Store has accomplished 4 over my 3. That's well done. The scorecard to try to keep track of all this is absolutely hilarious. Lamar Wilkerson, Sam Houston to IU, a highly thought of and coveted guard from the transfer portal of Bloomington. Speaking of which, Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network, the former guard, Buckets joins us. We're going to talk about Braden Smith being back, the transfer portal for the Boilers in losses and gains, and the expectations coming up in 25 and 26. Buckets coming up after 4. Tony East, Bucks Pacers first round series. We're going to get down to business with that with Tony coming up after 5. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, I got news for you with the three-point shooting contest, right, James? Coming up on Saturday, 11 until 12:30, H&H North Fieldhouse. Entry fee is $10. And Braylon Mullins is going to be there. Mark Zachary is going to be there. It's a hell of an event. Again, H&H North Fieldhouse. I can probably make that on Saturday, I would imagine. Now, obviously, you can do that before the Pacers and the Bucks play. They tip at 12:30 is your coverage, right, James, here on The Fan?
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll actually be participating in the three-point contest.
I'll be there at, 11?
11:30 to 1:30.
By God, I'll be there then. I'll be stretched out and ready to go. Until 1:30, is it?
Yep, that's what I got.
I'll probably go at 11 and watch a little Bucks and Pacers. But, yes, I'll be there. And people, $10 you can get in and all that, right? You have all the information over there too?
Yep, entry fee is $10.
$10. And then you get to shoot against me?
Potentially, I believe so.
Whip that ass. Whip that ass. Man, that felt good yesterday. It was a good time. Hey, come on in. Evan Sherrill is going to be here with us coming up in just a second. Sit tight with the Sam. Uh-oh, that looks like pizza for James. That big square box is not for the guy that ordered salmon right there. I guarantee that. Evan's going to join us in a second. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, former Boilermaker from the radio network, friend of the show, also plays a great deal, I'm assuming, still up in Lafayette. Pickup basketball. Buckets Bobby Riddell joins us now. Hello, Bobby. How are you?
Hey, JMV. I am doing great. How about yourself?
You playing any pickup up there with Mark Barnheiser at Lafayette, Jeff?
I don't get over to Lafayette Jeff and play, but I do play in a men's league, 30 and over men's league over at Legacy Courts, kind of one of those.
What former Boilermakers playing this men's league in Lafayette?
Ooh, former Boiler.
Yeah. Anybody?
Peyton Stovall is a former Ball State Cardinal.
Yeah.
He plays.
He was a badass dude. He's the one, I believe, that he hired Mark at Lafayette Jeff when he was the AD there.
Right.
Did he not? Yeah. So, yeah, and I
Yep,
believe
Peyton
he also played on the All-Star team that Mark coached back in the early 2000s. I believe that to be true as well.
Yeah, Peyton's awesome. Total stud for sure. And, yeah, was a really good player at both Lafayette Jeff and Ball State. I recall his senior year, I think, when I was, I want to say my junior year at Purdue. He came into Mackey Arena and was giving the Boilers the business for about a half. And then luckily the baby Boilers and company responded in the second half to get the win. But Peyton was a problem that day for Purdue.
Yeah. All right. Well, the men's league up in Lafayette with Buckets being a part of it. You got the news yesterday. I don't think this may have come to a shock to some hillbilly Kentucky fans, but I think everybody that's a fan of the Boilermakers knew that it was going to be inevitable that Braden was coming back.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was going to be certainly a stunning development to me if things went differently and he went elsewhere, just considering how important he is to Purdue and the relationships he has with the whole coaching staff, along with his teammates and things of that nature, just the sort of things he can accomplish from a legacy standpoint at Purdue. I was going to be pretty surprised if he went elsewhere, especially considering Purdue was going to be able to have the funds to make sure he was well compensated, which I'm sure he is going to be this year. And pretty awesome to have him back as a Purdue Boilermaker for his last go-around. A lot of special things he's hoping to accomplish his senior year, and the team's certainly going to be poised on paper to have a special season.
Yeah, and the rarity spending your entire time at one school. How about that? Going to put that up on the wall as a plaque too, right?
Yeah, once upon a time that was pretty commonplace, but yeah, now that's worthy of a jersey retirement almost in itself, right? Just to finish out a whole career in one uniform.
Speaking of which, it's going to be inevitable for his jersey retirement in some form or fashion, right there?
Yeah, I think that's inevitable. He may even get the same treatment Zach Edey got last year, where they basically it's such a done deal that they raise his banner and kind of honor him on, I think it was senior day they did it with Zach, where they basically revealed the banner and kind of gave him his moment in the sun, just because Zach, as he was going to be going off into the NBA the following year, you never knew, you don't really know when the next time he's going to have a chance to get back to Mackey Arena, because a lot of times these guys have come back after they've been done playing, and they get that moment where they get their uniform revealed in the rafters. Since Zach was going to be a certainty and they didn't really know when the next time he'd be back in Mackey, I think they decided, let's just do it on his senior night. And Braden's got a great chance, of course, to play for a long time professionally as well. So I could see them doing something similar for him next year.
Here's Bobby Riddell, Buckets from the Boilermaker Radio Network on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Before we get to those that are now going to be a part of it and those that no longer will be a part of the program in West Lafayette, was it tough to watch the way things went down on Monday night and still kind of look at the way the Boilermakers played against Houston, the situation they were in, and then the ultimate outcome? Because it just has to be. For somebody as closely associated in the past and the present with the program, I thought about you guys on Monday night of a week ago thinking, all right, we could very easily be in somewhat of a similar situation right here against this team, and then watching Florida get over.
No question. I think anybody associated with Purdue would be lying if they didn't, continue to see Houston advance and make it all the way to the title game, and of course come extremely close to winning it all, and not think about, what could have been, right? For Purdue, it certainly hurt to watch Tennessee kind of lay a massive egg against Houston in that Elite Eight game. Of course, our matchup with Tennessee would be completely different than, Houston and Tennessee's matchup, so you never know how things would have played out. But, yeah, it was a bummer to watch Tennessee have a pretty poor performance against Houston, and, of course, made you think, man, if we could have had that opportunity to play Tennessee, wow, maybe, we're back in the Final Four for a second consecutive year, which would have been incredible. And then, once you're there, you never know what can happen. Duke would have been an extremely difficult matchup, but hey, that's you just would love the opportunity to play against a team like that on that stage and see what can happen. And when you got Trey Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and guys like that, you certainly feel like you have a chance against anybody any given day, which I think we kind of proved against Houston. Is any given day we could beat some of the best teams in the country, or certainly take them down to the wire. And yeah, that hurt seeing Houston get that close, thinking, man, could have potentially been us, because the way that game against Houston ended and some of the controversy, regarding the final couple possessions and some calls that didn't go our way, that certainly could have, was a tough pill to swallow.
Buckets on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline too. Listen, we're all kind of forced into this world of NIL and the money that you can make while you can make it, to accepting mass exodus. And obviously this change that's so fluid in the landscape of personnel in college athletics right now. Do you understand, beyond the monetary factor, both Cam Heide and Miles Colvin leaving where they were in West Lafayette, and then as an end result in Texas and in Winston-Salem playing for Wake Forest?
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly has it certainly makes sense from a basketball standpoint why they would maybe be looking for new opportunities. I mean, you would love to see guys embrace the competition of playing for a team that's, got national title aspirations the following year. And you would hope that they would, love to compete in practice, compete for playing time, hope that brings the best out of them. And then, if you're able to rise to that occasion, you can play leading roles. If not leading roles, at least major complementary roles on a team that has a chance to win a championship. And then once those leading role type guys, Braden, Trey, and Fletcher, graduate, you would hopefully be there to take on leading roles yourselves if you were, able to do so from an opportunity standpoint and talent standpoint. And that's you would love. And that's, of course, what happened in yesteryears, back when the transfer portal wasn't an option. Guys were basically forced into that situation. But as I just mentioned, if they came back, they were likely going to be in complementary roles. And I certainly understand why those guys, as soon to be upperclassmen, are searching for opportunities that might provide them the ability to be in more of a leading role. Time's going to tell this year if those moves to Texas for Cam and Wake Forest for Miles are going to give them that opportunity or not. Those programs are high major programs and are going to have other really talented dudes as well on their roster. So they're going to be probably in maybe not quite the same situation of what Purdue has as far as the elite players returning, all American level players returning. But they're going to have to compete for those opportunities they want. And obviously I'm sure they got some nice compensation to try to do that, and maybe better than what they got at Purdue, I would imagine, considering how much resources Purdue was going to have to spend on their top players. So certainly makes sense why they made the change. Just bums me out, of course, as kind of a.
Which one bums you out more, Bobby, as far as the exit is concerned here?
I mean, they both bum me out equally, honestly. I mean, they both are very similar players from that high-flying athleticism, guys who can make shots, just fun players to root for. Both were good guys that I was friendly with, when I traveled around with the team. And, of course, Miles has the Purdue legacy, but Cam also has Purdue roots as well. So it just stinks from that standpoint that those guys aren't going to finish their careers wearing the Purdue uniform. But, in today's landscape, you can't blame guys, I suppose, for trying to find something better. But that's, as we've seen, the grass isn't always greener. Hopefully for those guys it is. But, you hope that they don't end up going somewhere else and not having a great experience and then regretting not being a part of what Purdue, may be able to accomplish this season.
That is weird. Last year at Texas, so a couple of Indiana State guys, Julian Larry and Jason Kent, end up going there, and I don't know how much. I'm sure financially it worked out for them. I don't know how much of a thrill they got as far as the overall season was concerned, because Larry was coming off the bench and not getting a lot of clock, and really so was Jason Kent there for a majority of the season, also battled through injuries. But I can understand with Cam Heide. I mean, you get a new enthusiastic situation with a new head coach in Sean Miller, who has been known for doing things in the past, both good and bad. I can kind of understand the situation even beyond the financials of it, to be honest with you.
No doubt. I mean, it was the writing on the wall was certainly going to be tough for Cam to find a ton of minutes on the floor for Purdue this season, you would think, just based on the position he was likely to play, and Trey Kaufman-Renn being the guy who was going to play 30-plus minutes at that spot, and those, the additions at the center position Purdue was getting regarding Oscar Clough coming in for the portal and Daniel Jacobson come back from injury. It was going to be tough for Cam to have a heavy minute production, probably game in, game out. I think there certainly would have been matchups where we could have played smaller and he would have played more, but game in, game out, the opportunity wasn't going to be probably in abundance there for him. And I certainly understand why that Texas situation looked appealing. I mean, that new car smell appeals to a lot of people, and that's what Cam's going to have. He gets to go through that recruitment cycle again, which I'm sure is exciting, having different schools, come after you. And it's, you see some of the numbers that are supposedly, I think Jeff Goodman put a tweet out regarding what some of the numbers were being thrown out regarding the compensation going to these guys. And you don't even have to be a starter or a big time player, it appears, to make substantial six figures. And you can't blame a guy like Cam Heide for what I'm guessing was a substantial six-figure situation at Texas.
Yeah, it's Bobby Riddell, Buckets from the Boilermaker Radio Networks on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'll give a lot of credit because Trey Kaufman-Renn could have taken an easier way out to, playing alongside numbers-wise, the volume that Zach Edey got compared to him, but hung with it, and we saw how that translated as well. And I was also curious, how much do you think, and we'll never know, I guess, maybe some will, I'm assuming most of us won't, how much money was actually being offered to Braden and how many overtures that Trey Kaufman-Renn also has received? It's kind of interesting to want to know that and be curious about it.
No, it definitely is, because I'm sure it's crazy amounts of money, and that's awesome for those guys, right? It's you certainly come a long way from the days where you couldn't get cream cheese on a bagel to where now these guys are getting heavily compensated, and it's terrific for these guys. I mean, who knows? This may end up being kind of the period of time where college basketball players are getting the most money they'll ever get. I guess we'll have to see how the landscape continues to evolve. But these guys are definitely fortunate to be playing in the time period they are, and, good for them. And they're getting compensated, handsomely for being, star players. But that's what at least I, love about it, is guys who are proven dudes at this level who have put up big time numbers are getting compensated for that production. What I don't like as much is when you see, guys all over the country who are getting compensated heavily for maybe production that hasn't occurred yet, or they think might occur. It's nice to see when guys get rewarded for production that has happened, and production that is, of course, more proven. So, great for those guys, and definitely curious to know what they're getting, because I'm sure it's pretty awesome.
Well, and especially what was offered, and if there was more being offered too. All right, Bobby, in closing here, give me some expectations and hand it out to the Boilermaker fans going into next year. I think at least in the really incredibly early poll out there, they are a top 2 team, certainly a top 3 team, and a lot of those eyeballs that cover so intently the sport right now. What's your expectation for this group? And still knowing, obviously they have Oscar Clough on the inbound right now as well, and we'll see what else is going to be out there on the horizon for Matt Painter to add to this roster. But what's your expectation about all this?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations are sky high, which I think they certainly should be, and I'm guessing most people are going to have the same expectations. Like you said already, a lot of the preseason, way too early top 25s are going to have Purdue in that top 5 mix. And when you think about who we have coming back, plus Oscar Clough and potentially, another addition or two, you would imagine, before this portal cycle ends, to me, and I'm biased, of course, I would think we would have a preseason number 1 type of team on paper, based on what we have as far as elite players coming back, the continuity we're going to have on our roster. When you think about 4 starters returning, a couple guys off the bench returning, and then Oscar Clough, one of the top portal guys in the country, coming in, filling especially a position of need that we had as far as providing some more rebounding and rim protection at the center position, a very skilled guy as well. I would think on paper we would have the best team, just as far as when you think about the experience and what these guys have accomplished. I can't think of a roster. Obviously, all the rosters aren't set in stone yet. And once this portal combat has completed, maybe there'll be a roster that jumps out more. But I think Purdue's going to have the most talented team on paper going into next season.
So, what is the name? Who sponsors your men's league team in Lafayette?
There's a little local establishment called Magoo's.
Magoo's.
Pizza and beer. Yeah, it's a nice little spot not too far from Legacy Courts. That's the name that sponsors us, and we rock that name on the jersey, and post-game beers and pizza and
nice
with the boys. It's a good time.
So is Magoo's a college hangout or a town hangout?
Yeah, not a college hangout, more of a local towny type hangout.
Love local towny hangouts, man. That's like a
Exactly.
tavern. We need to make Magoo's a Heaven Hill Distillery Tavern tour stop one of these days up there. I'll go to Lafayette. What the hell? I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Magoo's.
Come suit up. Make a couple J's.
All right. Hey, do make sure every single game you're playing for the logo on the front of the jersey. Magoo's. All right.
And hey, unless someone gives me a bigger offer, then
You
we'll
got
have
it.
to reconsider.
Always a pleasure. Hey, tell the fam I said hello, man. We'll catch up again soon.
All right. Thanks, JMV. Take it easy.
Bobby Riddell, that's buckets right there. Guard, starting guard. I'm assuming a starting guard for Magoo's men's league team in Lafayette, Indiana. Anybody ever been to Magoo's? Nobody in this room, I think, has been to Magoo's. Anybody out there? Give me a little thumbnail sketch from anybody out there at JMV 1070 on X. A little thumbnail sketch and description of Magoo's, please. Is it like what usually, this bums me out to say it, the Irish Lion in Bloomington? God, I cannot believe. I think the Irish Lion turned into a candle-making place. What the hell is this coming to, this world we're in? The Irish Lion's a candle-making place? What? Somebody tell me about Magoo's. I know about Cluster Truck because Evan Sherrill, after a week-long hiatus, is back in studio. My brother, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Where did you go last week? Were you on vacation or just jacking around? What happened?
We were on vacation. Yeah, nice little Florida vacation.
Florida? Where did we go in Florida?
We were in Panama City.
Panama. Was it warm enough down there?
It was. Yeah, it was very nice. High 60s,
high
mid
60s,
mid 70s towards the end
well,
of the week. So
that means
good.
A little frigid water.
Good golfing weather. Good by the pool weather. So. Yeah, it was
by
nice.
the pool, but not in it, right? Is the pool too cold?
We were in the pool for sure.
Really?
The pool was heated, so that was nice.
Oh, the heated pool. That makes sense because, I mean, shrinkage is a deal, man. Let me tell you that. It's not only Costanza has had the shrinkage thing. Yeah, that's 61-degree temps this time of year in Panama City. Can be detrimental, no doubt about that. Evan Sherrill's in studio, clustertruck.com, $25 or more in an order. You mention FAN in the promo code, $5 off, correct?
Correct. And right now, when you order, you will get a flyer on your bag to get $4 off your next Indians tickets as well. We have a partnership with them. We'll be out there at the Bark at the Park nights, handing out dog bandanas to all of the
Well, wait a minute. But first of all, I want to give you a compliment by suggesting a flyer on your bag just fits perfectly into this show rotation right here. But what is this about again? You're talking about dog park stuff? What is it?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with the Indianapolis Indians.
Love it.
So we'll be at all the Bark in the Park nights. I think there's one each month for the next 6 months or so.
Beautiful.
And giving out dog bandanas to all the
Love
dog
it.
owners out there that come to the park. Some promo codes, and you can get $4 off Indians tickets when you order Cluster Truck right now. You'll get a little flyer on your bag with the
love
coupon.
it. You have a dog?
I do. I have two. Yep.
What are their names?
Neely and McKinley, named after streets up at Ball State and Muncie.
Because the deal, correct? Porn names would be your dog's name and your street. So give me your porn name.
Oh, man. Like my current street?
Yeah.
Be Neely Hawthorne. That doesn't sound...
No, it sounds like he's doing my taxes.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too good. Or McKinley Hawthorne, so neither of those are great.
I have James, you want to chime in on this too? Porn name, dog, and street?
Well, I don't own a dog specifically. I have a cat. Would the cat work?
Yeah, go ahead. Not really. That changes the dynamic altogether. But yeah, go ahead.
I guess for me it would be, is it street name first or cat name first?
It is name of the animal first.
So Ripley Shelby.
Yeah, that's not working either. I've got the greatest one of all time in my first address in Greenwood that was not an apartment. Buddy Berrywood.
Oh, that's a good one.
Seriously,
that's pretty good.
That should be somebody's porn name right now.
That sounds like you
go. Wait a minute. If I'm getting into porn, that's what I'm calling myself, Buddy Berrywood.
That sounds like you've got a big, thick handlebar mustache, sideburns.
And just overflow. And this is kind of like me, overflowing levels of testosterone. Buddy Berrywood has right here. Bubbling, volcanic testosterone levels here.
Very hairy man is what you're saying.
I don't even know if it has to be vigorous dude right here. Buddy Berrywood.
That's really good.
Yeah. I think that's the best one of all time. I don't even know if there's a porn actor that has a name that's better than that right now or before. So, and knowing my background, I know most of them here. So
you're well versed on the names of male porn actors.
Listen, I grew up in the era of the 1980s when I had a big satellite dish, and we got S118 in my home. I used to roll the VHS tape and then take it and rent it out to school because it would be on from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. American Triple Ecstasy, and all the era stars were taking part.
The effort you had to go to back in the day to get a little bit of that.
I'm telling you. I used to watch Benny Hill just in hope to see a little side, right there. Hey, clustertruck.com. You ready to transition from that conversation to making sure people get $5 off their $25 order or more here?
Clustertruck.com, use code FAN, and next week we're launching our Burger Bash burgers. Kevin Bone Burger will be on the menu again. It's new and improved this time.
I think we need the Buddy Berrywood.
The Buddy Berrywood
dog.
burger.
Yeah, the Buddy Berrywood corn dog. Yeah, you guys serve corn dogs there?
We do not serve corn dogs, but I mean, I'm taking notes right now. This is
you
great.
should. Buddy Berrywood would be great. Everybody loves that name. This is the greatest. Like in terms of putting two names together to make a porn name like that, I would rarely find anything better than that. So.
It's convincing for sure.
True story. All right, one more time. Clustertruck.com, promo code FAN.
Clustertruck.com or download the app, promo code FAN for $5 off.
What'd you bring for James today? I know I have salmon in the bag right there. What'd you bring for James?
Yep, salmon in the bag, barbecue chicken pizza for James,
Whoa.
hand-stretched dough, house-made barbecue sauce, chicken, chopped bacon. It does come with red onions, but I know that's bold, so I took no red onions this time.
Gotcha.
And cilantro on top.
Gotcha.
Look at that right there. And I've got the salmon and mixed vegetables right here. I love that. What kind of potatoes are in there?
Roasted red potatoes.
Oh, red potatoes are good for you right there.
Very, yep.
That says hello diet right there. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Evan, as always. Hey, Evan Sherrill is back, clustertruck.com. Again, the promo code is FAN. $5 off a $25 order or more. Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys very much.
Evan Sherrill in studio. Tony East, top of the hour. All right. Is more of the Pacer first-round concern against the Bucs because we're inundated with Pacer stuff, or is it legitimate? Because nationally, everybody believes the Pacers with relative ease. Thanks, Evan. We appreciate it, man. Locally, we're a bit more apprehensive to make that call right now. 30 minutes. We've got Tony East right here. We'll explain. James.
Casey Valier chiming in with a great addition to this.
Well, help. Casey Valier, what's he got?
Max Mistflower.
That's pretty good,
That's
too.
a pretty good one.
But still, Buddy Berrywood is right there.
You've got him beat.
Yeah. Buddy Berrywood is a volcanic level of testosterone. Just walking around. What are those things that, like, come out of the ground in the rest of us? Those things that come out, the things that just...
I don't remember the
what
name
the hell
of them.
are they called? That's like
Berserkers or something.
Is that what it, Buddy Berry? That's like, and nothing. Not even fire. Buddy Berry, hey, get off me, fire. Thank you, Case. Quick one, we'll come back. Tony East, 30 minutes away. We got nothing to give away today, which is a bummer, but we are on the road tomorrow with the Indy 11, Carroll Stadium. Can't wait to see you out there. And then on the road on Thursday... I'll explain. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
He's my best friend. He's my pal. He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm John. Thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah, road shows the next 2 days. They're going to be a part of a show coming up this summer. First time in, I believe, nearly 3 decades plus that Simple Minds has had a substantial North American tour. Jim Kerr, Simple Minds, Soft Cell, which is incredible, and Modern English. This band will be a part of that coming up in June. That is one, and from what I have been told from our good friends at AAA, we're going to do some live shows at Ruoff to welcome in and to be a part of some of these shows, and that is definitely one that I will want to be a part of right here. I have always been a big fan of Simple Minds, even prior to the release of Don't You Forget About Me and the film The Breakfast Club. But that's going to be a great time. Soft Cell, by the way, never plays anywhere either. Certainly not in the United States. Got a good schedule of concerts coming up in late spring and summer, whether it's at Ruoff or at Everwise here downtown or at Gamebridge or at the Mural Old National Center, Hendrix Live. What's the place? The Holiday Park, the Rock the Ruins, I think, has some good shows coming up too. Symphony on the Prairie. Stevie G, our good friend, runs that stuff. I mean, just outstanding entertainment. And again, all the wineries and all the venues now, they give you options of music. Going to be one hell of a spring and a summer of 2025 around here. Hey, Major League Baseball later on tonight, our Red Legs back at it. Mariners and Reds at 640 Great American Ballpark. Former Reds right-hander Luis Castillo and current Reds left-hander Nick Lodolo. The Mal matchup in Cincinnati. 640 coming up later on tonight for that one. Elsewhere, I know Corey Kinney, shout out. The Cubs, 11-8, 940 on the road in San Diego coming up later on tonight. And for anybody out there that really cares, the Cardinals 8-8 on the season at home against the Astros tonight. That is a 7:45 gathering over at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Hey, by the way, too, I didn't mention this. The Reds are 8-8. And that's great considering how things started. So take it and see if you can run with it coming up later on tonight with the Reds in Major League Baseball. I mentioned, too, the play-in tournament begins. TNT 7:30 tonight. In the East, you have the Hawks and the Magic in Orlando. And then at 10 o'clock, this is going to be, I think, worthy of a watch. Like, we just kind of sit back and you just watch the Grizzlies dissolve. Whether it's Morant acting like Morant or sometimes even playing the role on the court, which he's supposed to do, being one of the better productive players. I mean, really, you got a little two-face going on there with Ja Morant. Yeah, obviously, your number one was Zach Edey. And then the Warriors, you pick up Jimmy Butler, and I think you probably wanted a little bit more than what you are right now. Still a 48-win team. Actually, both the Grizzlies and the Warriors, 48-win teams. That's a 10 o'clock start from San Francisco with the Grizzlies and the Warriors. The play-in tournament coming up later on tonight. Tomorrow night, Heat and Bulls, 7:30. Mavericks and Kings. Now, if there is a massive disappointment, not so much the Mavericks. So you finish up 39-43. And Nico Harrison, your general manager, still says he has no regrets about trading Luka well over a month ago. I think everybody else in the world has regrets. Everybody but the guy that actually initiated the trade. And who makes out like a bandit? The stinking Lakers, like always. Let's all help the Lakers. Let's make sure that the Lakers are satisfied here. So 39 wins. Now, the loss of Kyrie Irving, the trading of Luka, that's been an absolute mess. But the Kings, on the other hand, they reloaded, restocked, and then reloaded and restocked again, and you would expect them to be better, and they're not, even with the trade of De'Aaron Fox. 40-42, that's tomorrow night at 10 o'clock out west, the Mavericks and the Kings, the NBA play-in tournament. And, of course, Pacers, Bucks, that's coming up on Saturday, 1 o'clock, 12:30 coverage begins right here on The Fan. And a lot to get to with Tony East coming up at the top of the hour. JMV, the Buddy Berrywood sounds like an all-beef quarter-pound kraut dog stuffed with jalapeno cheese. Thank you. This is good right here. Scott Kenworthy, if an out-of-towner like yourself, see, I don't believe this. Because I think, and maybe that's just me, but I think if I walk, I pretty much fit in. Now, if I were to walk into some, I don't know, what do they call it, a cotillion? Like, then people would probably side-eye me and go, wait a minute. Like a cotillion or an event at a country club, kind of like in The Karate Kid when Daniel walked through the kitchen and then they spilled spaghetti sauce all over his white pants. Like if I were to walk into a place like that, I'd probably get side-eyed. But Scott says if an out-of-towner like yourself walked into Magoo's, the Patrick Swayze bouncer would throw you out. I would disagree. I think I would be welcome with open arms in Magoo's. Like, hey, you know what? Yeah. And then we get the conversation. Agreed. JMV, did you hear Ross Tucker on with the morning show today? Interesting compared Anthony Richardson to a lottery ticket. You hope it cashes, but it probably won't. I think we're well past that right now. I talked to Greg Rakestraw a little bit earlier about that, the Colts postgame show host. Can you imagine the massive admission of bust? And listen, I agree. This could very well, and I mean easily happen. If Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback in week number 1, honestly, will you be more freaked out and go, what the hell, or more relieved and saying, what the hell? At this point, you are reliant upon Daniel Jones to swoop in and be the savior. Much like you were reliant upon the elder statesman in Joe Flacco a year ago or Gardner Minshew 2 years ago. That's crazy to me. And again, this is all during this Anthony Richardson era. You know, sometimes it's not about the lack of reps. Sometimes you're just not going to be good enough to play that role, that position. But I think if you were to take, I mentioned this yesterday, a straw poll with Colts fans right now, I think more would believe. Now, again, I'll always say this. I think the older generation would believe it's going to be Daniel Jones. The younger generation still seem to think that Anthony Richardson is this, incredible out of the video game type of superstar Madden player. But I do think you would find that more people would suggest that week 1 and that starter is going to be Daniel Jones. Listen, there have been some ridiculous decisions made in this organization. I'm not suggesting that would be one, especially if he resembles what we have seen in the first 2 years. But, man, what? And I don't know if he'd be more relieved about the fact that Daniel Jones is starting and it's not Richardson, or more irate that Daniel Jones is starting and it's not Richardson. Once again, we are living through the absolutely ridiculous reality you are of being a Colts fan. It's crazy. JMV, I don't care who the quarterback is as long as we win. If the Jones dude, we'll see. I mean, it's not like Daniel Jones has got this profound background of winning either. That's what I'm saying. So you're better than this guy, but one of these days, I think we all dig, or at least dug, past tense of the day, going to Kings Island, getting on the Beast, or really early days, the Racers, or the Vortex. I mean, hell, that's way back in the 90s, so I'm well past that now. But you all dig a great amusement park ride. I think pretty much everybody's ready to get off of this one. And that's exactly what it has been, and it has not been amusing. Well, embarrassing, but not amusing. Tony East, top of the hour. Bucks and Pacers, man. Do not blank this up, Mitchell. That's a 3 o'clock high reference from 1987 right there. Don't blank it up, Mitchell. And I mean game 1 and game 2, but especially game number 1. 1 o'clock on a Saturday. I'm sorry, man. I'm going to hold my nose at that start time. Now, you get all this respect because you're the 4 seed and you're playing the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. You have home court, and then go, hey, you can play 1 o'clock on Saturday. Oh, great. That's another thing you have to get over. And we'll talk to Tony East about that coming up. Some of the pitfalls, some of the good things about the whole scenario coming up with Tony, top of the hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Yes, of course. The Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Right. 1, 2, 5. Freezer. 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Clustertruck.com. Promo code FAN. $5 off a $25 order or more. I would advise getting the salmon. Barbecue chicken for James. Pizza over there. Greg writes this regarding Magoo's in Lafayette. If you heard a little bit earlier, Bobby Riddell, Bobby Buckets of the Boilermaker Radio Network, talking about those that have left, those that are coming back, including Braden Smith and the expectations of the Boilers. Podcast 1075thefan.com. And he mentioned he plays in a men's league in Lafayette, and he is sponsored by Magoo's. I ask about Magoo's. Greg responds, Magoo's is more like a Pizza King than the Irish Lion. Yeah, the Irish Lion in Bloomington, I believe now is a candle-making place. An absolute legacy down there. And there have been some legacies that are no longer being around Bloomington, I would know. I was thinking about this the other day. Jay Arthur's was one. I think that is a Malibu Grill. Long since has been a Malibu Grill. McCree's Deli was one of my all-time favorites. They tried to reboot. They were over by the mall, over by the old Hills, Jackson Creek Shopping Center. Great destination. That was McCree's Deli. They tried that reboot, I think, in the depot near the square downtown in Bloomington. That didn't go over well whatsoever. I think the Pit Stop is now gone. That was always good for those that were under 21. The Pit Stop. What else? Oh, yeah. Well, it used to be Jake's, and then was Mars. And then I think most recently, Switchyard Brewery, I think is now, you can rent that bad boy now or lease it. I believe it's an establishment that is yet to be an establishment. A vacancy. And obviously one of the greatest of all time hooligans. No longer with us. Long since no longer with us in Dunkirk Square. So, yeah, there are a lot of places like that unfortunately have gone away, much like the Irish Lion. Derek chimes in with this. I felt like I just threw up in my mouth a little bit when you said Daniel Jones could be the starter in week number 1. Either way, we're looking at our March for the Arch. I guess it's right and a part of the master plan. I will suggest this. You've been through so much with that position already. I think you're numb to the fact that it can get much worse. And you've really hit every mark. You've been, if you're trying to find a solution in the center of the dartboard, you may be the worst dart thrower of all time in what the Colts have accomplished or lack thereof, because it has been all over the place. I'm with Ken, what he said a little bit earlier. No matter what, you just want to see the team win. But there's no guarantee that Daniel Jones is the guy. And you would look at Daniel Jones being the starter over Anthony Richardson, and especially after Anthony Richardson, because a lot of people believe this whole offseason workout is going to translate, with the quarterback guru and Josh Allen translate into a big gain in year number 3 for Richardson. But the problem is we have seen so much, and one of the things we've seen a lot of is the lack of availability. That is equally problematic. And one thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle of all this, we're talking about the accuracy or lack thereof, the team leadership, the preparation, the reason why he got benched a year ago, and then you get to the top 3 or 4 before you even get to availability or lack thereof. Don't even get us started there. Man, there is a ton to prove. And that just would not be a significantly good start if you're not able to prove it while healthy in training camp against Daniel Jones. I think then if the writing isn't on the wall, as I mentioned, I believe it has been for the past year, if the writing isn't on the wall, it most definitely will be then. So hopefully a little bit of magic. Nah, Richard, I do remember this. You may be too young, but Bloomington had the 70s, the Hop. On 3rd Street was a spot, I believe. There was a place, too, called The Regulator that Mark Cuban, either at the very end of college or just out of college, actually owned. The Reg. They called it The Reg. How about the Nightlife Lounge in what used to be the old Ramada Inn, which is now a Holiday Inn? And that's where I met Brent Musburger and the late Jim Valvano in a late-night drinking excursion before. Remember when ABC back then had the Big Ten games? And they had a game on a Sunday the next day, and Brent Musburger and Jim Valvano, they were doing the game. And Brent Musburger was incredibly attracted to one of the girls with us in our group. And I think you could tell. It was pretty obvious that he was not only incredibly attracted, but very inebriated, which was awesome. Pretty awesome. A break? All right, Tony East on the other side. Are we a little bit overboard with being apprehensive in round number 1 with this Pacer team against the Bucs because we've seen too much? Are we inundated with watching every second and every possession? Because nationally, they suggest the Pacers, I'm not going to say with ease, but if you're talking about 6 games, you feel pretty confident in the Pacers against the Bucs in round 1. Have we seen too much, or nationally have they a little knowledge on the Pacers? Talk to Tony about that, and then some coming up on the other side. Do not go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
I want you out in front of the school with her. I'd like to have a few words with you, by God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
With the Indy 11 tomorrow, Miami FC, the opposition, I shall explain, live from Carroll Stadium. At this time tomorrow, we'll catch you there. On the road on Thursday as well. Explanations forthcoming. I was just watching, and I'd not seen this kid play live. Mount Vernon's Luke Riddell, that is a Matt Painter Purdue commit. Left-handed, nice-looking left-handed stroke right there. But I've heard a lot of stories, and a lot has been offered up about the success he's had individually and his team has had at Mount Vernon, and he's got a nice-looking left-handed stroke right there. Somebody just sent me some video. I appreciate that. Luke Riddell, Purdue commit. Meantime, NBA's play-in tournament begins coming up tonight. Atlanta in Orlando. And this may be a little bit of fun because the Grizzlies are such a combustible group. You just wait until the soap opera begins. Grizzlies and Warriors tonight from San Francisco, your NBA nightcap. For the Pacers, officially underway in round one against the Bucks. That's on Saturday. Hey, you love the fact that they have home court in round one. They're a 4 seed, but I don't dig the one. Some do. I just, for whatever reason, I always seem like that 1 o'clock Saturday opener with the real postseason underway is a kind of a home court, a favored team disaster spot. I don't like it. And hopefully we'll be proven wrong. 12:30 coverage begins. Bucks and Pacers right here. Game number 1 on Saturday with Pacers Radio. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is a longtime friend of this show. He is geared up for the postseason as well, covering the Pacers as much as he does, and certainly there's a lot to talk about right now. At The Next Hoops, at Forbes Sports, Locked On Pacers, Tony East checks in on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. You just mentioned a prospect that I've never watched going to Purdue, so I can't say you're lying, but I have very rarely ever thought a lefty jump shot ever looked good.
Really?
So I will have to take your word. It just looks wrong to me. It's like Tua throwing, right? Like, he's a good quarterback. It's fine. It just looks wrong. I can't explain it.
Here's what's weird to me. I always thought, and again, once you learn it, then it's okay. But I always thought left-handers had the advantage because it is predominantly so many right-handers that defensively, what do you normally do? You go to their right hand to cover their right hand. And I think left-handers easily can get around and get a shot off, at least until you get used to them, because you're not used to going to the left hand. I always thought that was an advantage.
It is. It totally is. Like, your instinct is to contest with the lefty to guard the righty, and then all of a sudden, shot's going over your head. But I digress. I did not play basketball long enough to pretend like.
Are you still playing pickup, by the way?
Yeah.
What do we play? Where does Tony East play pickup?
Middle school, pretty close to where I am. I won't say where specifically, but it's been fun, and I am definitely the worst player there, which I appreciate. It makes me better and gets me moving.
Why will you not say where it is? You're afraid people will join you?
I'm just keep it to myself. It's close enough to where I live.
No, I got you. I understand. I tell everybody where I go.
I've heard this. I've heard about who you play with from James Boyd. I hear you guys are actually quite good.
Yeah, it was he the problem with James, though, and he was great the first time he played. The second time he said he was going to play, and he bailed. We played at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. He bailed at 12:30 on Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Wow.
That is problematic right there. We can't have that. But hopefully he learned.
I hope you had an extra person. I hope you had more than 10.
We did. We still played, but I remember things like, because there's one thing that I have never done as a pickup hooper extraordinaire. I love doing it. I have never left anybody. Like, I played twice yesterday. I played in Bloomington at the Hyper at 11:45, and then played last night at St. Luke's with. And shout out to Todd Licklider and to Alex Sylvester that invited me with a great group up there last night at 8:30. So I will never. And they only had 10, so I'm never going to leave anybody hanging. Never. Can't do it. That's not what a hooper does. You don't leave anybody hanging, do you?
No, absolutely not. That's part of why I like going so much. We have a
You
good
got
group
it.
that shows up every time. We play at Eastwood. I guess it's not that bad to say. We play at Eastwood, so.
Oh yeah, see that's cool though. And a good group.
Yeah.
You want to have guys that nobody's going to get you injured or anything like that. You want to be able to go home, drive home, and carry
I
on
set a
with
lot
your
of
existence.
screens. If anyone's going to hurt anybody, it's me. I set so many screens.
Oh, see, I love playing with this group last night because they were calling out. Screen. Everybody was talking defensively. That's how you know you play with guys that played collegiately, and these guys all I think did, and they were all calling out screens. So I don't have to run into anybody's armpit or anything like that unknowingly. So. And I only move like half a step left and half a step right, then I'm beat by anybody off the dribble right there. My lateral movement, my straightforward movement's a lot better. My lateral movement, I think, is pretty much buried at this point. So
guys show up in their Hanover College basketball shirts, and I'm like, oh, boy. give me a tough day for me.
Hey, I'm curious about this. I brought this up. I think that locally – we're a little bit more apprehensive about believing this is going to be a Pacer favorite in round number 1. And maybe it's because the way that they have played recently, and maybe it's because we overanalyze every second, every possession, whereas nationally it seems, Tony, like everybody is in lockstep with believing the Pacers are by far the favorite in this, and I think that's because they haven't seen them nearly enough. Is that fair?
I totally agree with that. I've been not surprised necessarily because they're the home team and they are a good team. They won 50 games, but just like how dominant the Pacers have been the favorites nationally. And with Dame out, I get why. I am going to pick the Pacers to win the series, to be clear, but I, like you and a lot of people that I've talked to at least, feel like this is going to be a harder Bucks series than last year, both because, hey, that Giannis guy's playing this time. He's really good. I could stop there and everybody would understand what I mean, but while they have a different roster, and the guy who killed the Pacers last year, Chris Middleton, is gone, and they can take a deep breath and be thrilled about that. They have this bench group with a bunch of shooters around Giannis that's been really good. Kevin Porter Jr. actually gives them somebody besides Dame who can dribble towards the basket and be threatening. They're just better, at a lot of stuff, and specifically a lot of stuff the Pacers exposed them for last year. Their perimeter defense was terrible last year. It's a lot better, not awesome, but a lot better this year. That zone has crushed the Pacers multiple times this season. I still think the Pacers should be the favorites, but it's going to be a harder series for a lot of reasons, even beyond the obvious large Greek reason.
Do you take any consideration away from the season series? I know we did a year ago, but do you take any consideration and how you look at this first round matchup with the Bucks from the season series?
Yeah, the players will tell you both years, even last year when the Pacers were better in the regular season, they said, no, we can't take anything from that, right? And this year is similar, I think. They don't feel like they can. They didn't have Aaron Nesmith in the first one. I think they missed Nesmith and somebody else in the second one. The third one they won on a miracle 3. The fourth one they lost in a game where they had the worst bench performance I've ever seen from them. And, they deserved to go 1-3 against the Bucks this year. They didn't play them very well. And again, they're a tough team that presents unique challenges to the Pacers specifically. And I think they will throughout this series. But the team, even last year when they were better than the Bucks in the regular season, said, no, we can't draw in the regular season. That's not something that we think will be predictive of the series. And they ended up winning anyway. But they're keeping that message this year, which at least does to me put some belief in them saying that. And I think they're right to do that given how many guys were missing time for them. And the first 2 games were before, the Bucks made a bunch of trades at the trade deadline. So you can toss those out. Just from that, they've been 1-1 since then. So while I do think they matter a little bit, we saw Giannis kick their butt a few times, it's hard to really pull a bunch from it given how much has changed. And the team's saying, no, it doesn't matter. It's the playoffs. It's different.
Do you draw the line? Do you start really this Pacer season to where this team is right now after that Charlotte game back on December the 8th at home?
I do. Yeah. I mean, it's probably not totally fair to be yes, that's who they are. It's just who they were for the last 3+ months of the season. But that's a huge sample now, right? Of them being, I think it's 4th. It might be 5th. I didn't keep up with it down the stretch, but the OKC, Cleveland, and Boston had a better record, and that's it, right? The Pacers were next from that point on because they defended much better after they got that time off the practice and Andrew Nembhard back. And Tyrese Halliburton brought that up today because they had a practice. He said, yeah, he talked about how practice has helped them this year, right? And he brought up that time of the season where they got embarrassed by Charlotte. They could not get over the hump in the fourth quarter. They were 5 games under 500. I don't think anybody thought they'd be favored in a series at that point. I didn't, certainly, right? And now they are. And so they've been really good since then. The Bucks could say the same thing. They started 2-8, right? And they've been like top 10 on both ends since and figuring stuff out, but they obviously don't have Damian Lillard. So it's a little different on their side to say that. But I totally agree with you that is the spot of the season that I always point back to when I look at how good the Pacers can be, is like they've been among the elites in terms of record and point differential since that time off. And Tyrese Halliburton's played at close to or at an All-NBA level that entire time. Like, they can be really good because of that. They're just playing a very good team, and they're playing the best player left in the Eastern Conference.
It's Tony East on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. 12:30 coverage begins. Game number 1, Bucks and Pacers, first round set in the NBA postseason on Saturday. It is 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock tip from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So with that, is it fair to talk about and to analyze or overanalyze how they closed the season while winning against teams with the lack of being at full strength and maybe even out of it? Let's just face it, they had to survive a lot of situations to where you would hope that they would run away with the game.
Yeah, I think the Pacers had the worst 8-2 finish to a season possible. Is that weird to say? I mean, they had some good games along the way. Like their 10th to last game, I think, was when they scored 162 in DC. That was a great win, right? They played really good. That night, obviously, they won in Denver, missing Siakam. That was a good win, but they also, squeaked out the Wizards. They squeaked out the Cavs with none of their starters. They got blown out by Orlando. They played starters in Cleveland and had a 23-point comeback. They had a lot of games the last month or so. The Dallas victory, both Nets wins, where it's they won barely against a team that everybody probably thought they should crush, and they had some good wins in there too, like in Minnesota. The way they beat Minnesota at home was impressive. They were one possession away from a good win over the Lakers that everybody would have referenced for forever. They had some good performances in there. I don't think it was all doom, but I think that they had so many close wins, like you're saying, against teams that, at least on paper, they would say that they should handle that. It doesn't feel like they're playing as good as their record down the stretch said, even though I do think, and they're probably right to say this, but we'll see in the playoffs, they do deserve credit and a mental boost from, you know what, if it's a tight game in the playoffs or if they're down 10 after one quarter, everybody relax. They know how to handle these situations. They've done it all year, even though the playoffs are a different beast.
So a sample size that we have seen with Milwaukee since the trade deadline and Middleton and basically factoring in now Kyle Kuzma, and that of Kevin Porter Jr., who gets a lot of the playing time now that Damian Lillard is going to be unavailable, at least for whatever period of time it is in the postseason. How has that squared away with the look of the Bucks alongside Giannis, who has been fantastic recently?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a lot of it worked out perfectly, right? The Bucks play on Central Time, so a lot of their games start an hour after the Pacers, and the Pacers and Bucks were fighting for seeding down the stretch. So I would tune into a lot of the end of their games for the last month of the season. I thought, if the Bucks lose, it'd be nice for the Pacers, and they'd be in a tight game late in the fourth quarter, and then Kevin Porter would be awesome, and they would win. He's been really important for them recently, and they did not even have anything close to a guard of that caliber besides Dame, obviously, last year. He was awful with the Clippers this year, just a terrible player. He shot it really poorly from three. With the Bucks, he's at over 40% from three, 12 points a game, and almost 4 assists. He's given them real play, both as a distributor and a scorer. They haven't had that kind of element on their team since, and they pulled in other important players at the deadline. Kuzma's not good, but he has skills that help them specifically in a way that they didn't have before. They actually have a backup 5 in Jericho Sims, even though I kind of doubt he plays much in this series, and just all those moves in tandem really balanced out their roster. They have this bench group that they run out with AJ Green, Gary Trent, Kevin Porter, Giannis, and then Bobby Portis of late, but before that someone else because Bobby Portis got his suspension. That's just been crushing teams. It is a great group. It's so hard to double Giannis with that much shooting on the floor. The Bucks led the league in three-point percentage this season, right? They just have a lot of elements and fastballs to throw at you that are really tough to deal with, and a lot of that is because of how good Giannis is, but a lot of that's because their team is different than last year and even different than at the trade deadline in a way that makes them a lot better.
I mentioned this yesterday, and Tony East on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, first-round series with the Bucks and the Pacers underway on Saturday. It always seems like Gary Trent Jr. against the Pacers is knocking down a three. And then Kristen Airy ran some numbers for me during the show yesterday. Nearly 55% from distance this season, Gary Trent Jr. for the Bucks against the Pacers. that can't happen, and certainly that has been problematic.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, it's so easy to say they got to guard that guy. They got to stay glued to him and make sure he doesn't get free. And, like, that's true. They need to keep their eyes on him and do their best to not let him get going. But, like, he gets easy looks because of the way they wanted to defend Giannis, right? Like, they put the wall up at times. They sent two in the post. You know, they try, if you put the right size on him but leave the block open, he'll just spin. And he can make that mid-range turnaround now, so it's not as trivial as just don't let him pass, don't let him get to the rim. Like, he can score in other ways. So there's a reason these Bucks shooters are open. Like, their volume from three isn't high, but their percentage was the best because they get great looks because of the way Giannis and when they had Dame were defended. So I think Gary Trent's going to have a couple games of series where everybody's throwing their hands up and saying, why aren't the Pacers guarding that guy? And, like, maybe it is possible they're just messing up their defensive scheme or someone's not paying attention. But I bet a lot of them are maybe not intentional necessarily, but just like they're okay living with it given the situation. Giannis puts them in, and that's what happened to last this season. He was excellent against the Pacers this year.
Yeah, that concerns me, obviously, Portis. And here's the other concern I have, and I felt this was going to be more dramatic if that first-round matchup was against Detroit. And I like to reference it as muddying up the water. I thought Detroit was really going to come at them aggressive and a lot of non-basketball bull crap. But I'll be honest with you, Milwaukee kind of invented that. And I expect the same out of them. And there's a reason, one of the big reasons why the regulator is a part of this roster right now is because of actions just like that from Milwaukee specifically a year ago. And I think with this group, you're going to see more of the same in round one.
Yeah, it's important, right? There certainly is some dislike for each other that got referenced today at practice between these two teams, right? And like, I remember Game 6 last year. You never know what's going to happen, but like Obi Toppin getting into it with Bobby Portis in the first quarter, and James Johnson comes in to defuse. Like, if that doesn't happen and Obi Toppin gets ejected, do they win that game? Do they win the series? Like, who knows? It's impossible to say. Like, that is all so important, and you know, everybody will remember that they signed him the day after the ball game stuff happened, and like, you can tell me that you've been having those conversations for forever, and I believe you that they've been checking in with James Johnson for a long time, but that timing did make me laugh, and everybody will remember it forever. So he's got a role in this series on the bench, and these two teams certainly hate each other. Even with the new cast of Bucks characters, the leaders, the coach, like the franchise ambiance. Or
well, he can be as big a jackass as anybody else can, honestly. But you saw that against his former teammate Malik Beasley in that Detroit game Friday night with the whole shimmy thing. He can't, and we saw the whole basketball situation where he lost his mind a year ago. He may be one of the greatest we've ever seen, and certainly elite level and one of the greats right now, but he can also go jackass on you.
Absolutely. Yes, he can, and that's fine. Him and Malik Beasley, who seemed to be buddy-buddy 2 days later when they played on ESPN, but he certainly can, right? That emotion is important, and sometimes it channels positively for the Bucks, and sometimes it makes him become pass first and makes him really emotive and frustrated. And I do wonder how that will look in the series because they didn't get a chance to see it last year.
All right, Halliburton and Siakam and Turner, for example, we know. But whose role absolutely needs to be elevated? If I'm not giving you those three names, who comes to your mind first here?
Yeah, my X factor will be Turner, even though he's a guy you just said I can't pick because I think
that's
him
okay.
making threes.
Take it anyway. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to take him. I think it's going to be whichever one of they need one of their wings, whether it's Nesmith or Mathurin, to be scoring, right? And of all the matchups they've had, like Mathurin has historically been pretty good against the Bucks. I know everybody remembers the stop he had on Giannis in the first game those two teams played last year, but in general, stylistically, like they've kind of struggled defending him. And their most recent game in Milwaukee, he was not very good. In fact, it was one of his worst games of the season. The whole bench was awful. But I think he's going to be a guy that the whole playoffs is a talking point. Like, how does he look? Is this setting better for his play style, or is it the Pacers trying to play their fast style? Does that not really help him? But if he can be a weapon scoring off the bench and helping the Pacers set their defense and kind of put cracks in a game when their second unit's on the floor, the tempo of the game is different. That's going to be really important. And maybe that's Nesmith, right? Maybe Nesmith's close to the season where he was averaging 15, 16 points a game will just translate to the playoffs. And he'll be able to get to the rim and score, and he'll make some threes. And the Bucks will be like, well, how are we supposed to defend this guy if we're also defending the Pacers' big three, right? Like, that's how Nesmith went crazy these last couple months. But last year, Nesmith really struggled putting the ball in the basket in the postseason outside of that Game 7 in the Garden. So one of those two is going to have to take advantage of the openings they will be provided just because of the attention the rest of the Pacers get. And maybe that is Andrew Nembhard who does it, but I imagine it's going to have to be one of the wings.
So we have seen their defense be much better, so they don't have to be completely reliant upon the offense and the pace of a year ago. But, Tony, between you and I right here, I think we both still know the level of importance to run at their pace and to score heavily and to make the Bucks chase you, regardless of how much better or in what capacity defensively they are better right now.
I agree. It's funny that we talk about this for the playoffs because right after we mentioned this earlier, right after the NBA Cup, they defended pretty well. Like, it was a big part of their season turnaround. And I remember asking Tyrese Haliburton, like, hey, do you remember a time that you guys were defending better than this while you were with the Pacers, or is this the best, do you think? And he said right away, well, maybe the playoffs. And I thought, I didn't really think about that. So I don't think they were, like, awesome on defense in the playoffs last year. In fact, their defensive rating says they were still below average, but they raised their level on that end last year in the postseason. And I think that they will need to or want to or have to, whatever phrasing you want to use, this year again, right? And this year their floor is much higher, right? They finished 14th for a reason. They got a lot of improvements on that end of the floor from their young guys. They play more connected. Like, you can just see it. They're better, but the playoffs are a different animal. And, like, if you have any cracks in what you're doing, the other team will immediately expose it, or will figure it out very quickly, or will adjust to it between games. Like, you've got to constantly be on the front foot trying to defend aggressively and make the other team react to you. And they've had some success doing that against Giannis, but it's not the same as last year. They don't have they have a great offense, but not last year's elite level. They're going to have to rely on their defense somewhat, and they should have some confidence in that. They finished above average on that end of the floor, but I think they're going to need to find a way to have their offense be closer to last year than it was for much of the season, because it's hard for me to imagine them winning a series on the back of their defense, even if it is better than last year.
Yeah, and the bench play, and I think McConnell is needing to play a bigger role as he was a year ago compared to how he has been kind of on and off, certainly most recently. Tony East with us. Before I let you go, defending Giannis. I mean, obviously, it's going to take all hands on deck, but some of these individual matchups we're going to see against one of the great players of the NBA now. Where do we begin, and where do we finish, individually speaking, here?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I don't know where this finishes. I think the Pacers will win. I think it will be a longer series. I kind of faded away in the middle of your question, so I hope I'm answering it correctly. If I have to be a prediction guy, I'll probably take Pacers in 7, but I think it's going to be hard, and they're going to need some role player super games to get it done, because stopping Giannis is very challenging, and you can't just put one guy on him. Everybody's going to say, who should they put on Giannis? How's this going to work? And you can't just do that. You can't just put one guy on him and call it and dust your hands off and say we did it. Like, they've put 3 guys on him before. They formed this wall at the free throw line and try to make him be that pass-first player that he claims to be. And, like, you can do that, but then other guys are going to get open threes and make them, like the Bucks have all season. So that is where they're going to have to dial in. If they are locked in on their scheme and style, slowing him down, maybe they can win the series. A lot of people have suggested to me, just let him score 50 and stop everybody else. That doesn't work. You can't do that. Like, that's the only game they lost to the Bucks last year, was playing that style in the regular season. So I think they're going to have to be crisp on that end, but I think they can do it. They've done it a few times in recent seasons, and I will predict they win a long, long first-round series.
All right, for example, how much defensive time do you think, and we'll say individually, even though we know collectively they're going to try to do this team defensive-wise, compare Nesmith to Toppin and how much time that maybe individually they're going to see against Giannis in this series?
Obi probably shouldn't guard him at all, if you ask me, honestly. I think it should always be one of Nesmith or Siakam, or I guess Miles Turner, if Giannis plays the 5 with that bench group like he has at time. And then, if they need to mix it up, like put Jarris in for some size, because I think Toppin's more likely to play the 5 than the 4 in this series if the Bucks keep using a Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis front court rotation without a center. That's what the Pacers did last year with much success after not getting enough from Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson in that series. So I think Toppin's role is going to be more whatever the other front court player is defending them, whether that's Brook Lopez or Portis or whoever, and the other guys will be I am theoretically the guy guarding Giannis, but other guys are helping the actual player.
That makes sense. Tony East with us. Once again, you can follow his coverage variety of ways at the Next Tubes, at Forbes Sports, at Locked On Pacers. And always good right here. I'm sure we'll see you at the field house or around the field house at some point, man. Keep on hooping, and we'll see what happens beginning on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Thanks, Tony.
You got it. Thank you.
Tony East on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Let us take a break and we'll come back. We got time for your thoughts before the top of the hour. In whatever capacity you want to get to, but certainly with the Pacers in mind. Been busy so far. Greg Rakestraw a little bit earlier, too. We talked about the NFL draft. Matt Miller of ESPN talks draft with us coming up tomorrow. On the road tomorrow with the Indy 11 at the mic. We shall see you there before their matchup with Miami FC. We had Greg a little bit earlier. We talked to Buckets, Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network, the return of Braden Smith, and the expectations of the new and those that have exited with this Boilermaker team. Very early call with Bobby a little bit earlier. And Tony East, the podcast regarding the Pacers round number 1 matchup with the Bucks in the postseason. That is 1075thefan.com. Quick break, we'll come back. Your calls at 239-1070 to close out the show. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And the first round selection by I'll check that. I'm sorry, the second-round selection by the Fever last night. Michaela Timpson, Florida State. Now, there's anticipation for the start of the Fever season. We'll have Pat Boylan join us all the time, the voice of the Fever, of course, also of the Pacers Radio Network, and discuss that. That is also on the way with a big draft night in the WNBA last night. We're talking about play-in, of course, later on tonight. That is officially underway in the NBA. The Hawks and the Magic at 7:30. Grizzlies and Warriors out west coming up later on tonight. That is at 10 o'clock. I mentioned time for your calls at 239-1070, whether you want to talk about the postseason and the Pacers or maybe a little Colts draft. Yeah, whatever you're thinking about, we can do it right now. The closing 30 of this show at 239-1070. And Adam is checking in on this Tuesday afternoon. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Hey, JMV. How you doing?
Great, Adam. Go ahead.
Just got a little bit of thing to say. On Friday, I'll be your way at the Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Do you fancy yourself a Cat Williams fan?
It's funny. I do, and I thought he was supposed to be on this show. Somebody had asked me to have him on, and then I hadn't heard from that somebody since. So I thought he was actually going to be on the show. I'm assuming you're a big fan, right?
Oh, I'm definitely a big fan. I seen him in Fort Wayne when he was here. This was a couple of years ago, and I'll be 10 rows from the stage this Friday night.
That's well done. I'm curious about this because Cat Williams on Friday. I had Frank Caliendo in here last Monday, and we were talking about the differences in playing the big venues like the Fieldhouse or the smaller clubs like Helium. And I know Shane Gillis almost a couple of weeks back, played at the Fieldhouse. Do you like the atmosphere when it's a big arena with a comedian? I know when you have a musical act, a group, or a concert going on, it's different. But you dig it with a comedy show with that big a facility and that many people in the house. You like it?
I'd have to say, yeah. I mean, I've seen him at the Embassy, which is here in Fort Wayne. It's one of them old school theaters, and it was very small. You couldn't move. And then I seen Jeff Dunham when he was in Indy at Gamebridge, and it was a good time.
All right, so are you in Fort Wayne right now?
I am currently at work.
All right, tell me this. Pierre's. How many times have you been to Pierre's? Because I hear nothing but good things musically about Pierre's in Fort Wayne.
I've been there a couple times.
What have we seen at Pierre's in Fort Wayne?
I've seen Tech Nine.
Okay. I know. Yep.
And he's a rapper. He's been around for years.
I'll give you a great example. Soulja Boy is up there on the 27th. That's a Sunday. Soulja Boy. So what was the other one? Yeah. Now, do you like going there? Was it a good time?
Pierre's was decent. Again, it's another small venue. And when they sell it out, it's like standing room only. You're shoulder to shoulder, and it's typically an all-age venue, which that kind of mixes in some trouble.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and then this past Sunday, I had a beer mile. Hopefully next year we can get you out there and you can play some music and.
Yeah. Why not?
Because I'm the runner that calls you all the time, and we had a little beer mile on this past Sunday.
Love it, buddy. Now runner as in marathon runner.
Oh yeah, remember we talked about the whole what do you do when you have your when your nipples chafe and all that? Remember that?
Yeah, I don't like chafed nipples. That's why I think running's a punishment.
No. Running is people think it's not for everybody.
So, I know on Saturday because my friend Alex Sylvester is participating. There's a Carmel Marathon Saturday, is there not?
I haven't heard that one.
I think so. Marathon, and somebody I'm sure in Hamilton County can tell me, but I believe there's a Carmel Marathon on Saturday. I would not have that knowledge because I am not participating. Obviously,
I have. Let's see, on the 26th. That'll be next week. I have a ultra run, so it's a 6-hour run out in the woods.
Good God, 6-hour run. What are you?
Oh yeah.
Come on, man.
Hey, they do a series of 6-hour, 12-hour, and 24-hour.
Man, you got to explain to me why that's fun. I don't get it, but yeah.
It's just, seeing different views and getting your head right. It's very good to clear your mental capacity, if you will. It's very good for that.
Adam, you stay in touch, man. You keep on running, and we'll check in hopefully again soon.
All right, sounds good.
You got it. That's Adam. The ride is 6 hours nonstop, 24 hours nonstop. I'm all for clearing the head and getting right with it, but damn. Hey, James, Tuesday, May the 20th, Pierre's, Fort Wayne. You ever been there?
I have never been there.
Buck Cherry. I'm all lit up again. Buck Cherry. I'm just going over the schedule coming up here. I have heard good things about Pierre's. I saw this. I believe this is coming up in May. And for you out there that enjoy EDM shows, there's a group called Levity out of Chicago that is playing. And our friends over at the Mirah Egyptian Room is where that's going to be housed. It is a charity event coming up in May. Levity. I was actually at the Wooly show. I was there. I'm by far the oldest guy in the place going back to November for Wooly, who was the headliner, and Levity was a part of that. Here's one for you, James. Thursday, July the 24th, Power Man 5000. Went from the archives. Remember them?
I have heard the name. I can't say I've ever really listened to them.
Pierre's in Fort Wayne. Not bad. Change your show to the Run with JMV. I can't imagine that. Listen, I can sprint basketball much better than I used to now. But as far as distance running, I just don't get it. Joseph Fenton Fowl said, I spent my 30th at Pierre's when I lived in the Wayne. It was quite shady then. My brother went there in the 80s and said it was legendary. Our good friend Tony Donahue, I saw Trapped at Pierre's about 10 years ago. Super small and loud venue before Trapped basically got canceled for going all I didn't know Trapped got canceled. They did?
I think so.
That's Headstrong. I get you. Yeah, whatever. I didn't know Trapped got canceled. Thank you, Tony, for that. Trapped. Our guy Fulton is at 239-1070 right now. Hello, Fulton. How are you? Fulton, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Hey,
sorry.
buddy. What are you doing? Did you put me on? You left me on hold. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, John.
It's all right, buddy. Go ahead.
We've got the tickets for the Physical the Musical now.
Okay.
So it's $15.
$15.
And I sent you the email.
Okay.
And you're welcome to come.
And it sounds pretty exciting, Fulton. It does.
Yep. And it's at Hampton Heights High School.
What's your role in this, Fulton?
I'm one of the Who's.
All right. Are you dancing?
Yep, I'm dancing and singing.
I can only imagine, buddy. You dancing. That is an extraordinary level of entertainment right there. Let me tell you.
Yep, and next Saturday is the Colts Hall of Fame for next Saturday. So
what the hell is that all about?
Well, the Colts Hall of Fame is
that's a fan of fame or some Hall of Fame or something like that. Yeah,
it's Hall of Fame.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
So basically, it's like where people do like Colts fans or something.
Oh, sweet.
Like
so they recognize you as a big time Colts fan then.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. All right then. Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, have a great time with the musical, and that's at Hamilton Heights High School, correct?
Yep, May 15th through the 17th at 7 p.m. And if you guys want to go to theaddictator.com and select this physical, and it's $15, and there's a lot of tickets going on.
You got it, buddy. Thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
That is Fulton right there, the musical. You know, I've seen him in a musical before.
That's right, you have, haven't
Elf.
you? Yeah.
A year ago in November, Tipton High School, Elf. I was there. Let me tell you what, that was one hellaciously long musical, James. Kept going and going and going. And see, what's weird is I'd never seen in its entirety the film Elf. Never.
It's not one of my favorites, I won't lie.
Yeah,
but I'm not the biggest.
No idea what was going on other than Will Ferrell played Buddy the Elf in there.
I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell guy. I can't lie.
I'm all right with him at some things. I mean, you can get a little overwhelmed, I think, at times.
He's just a lot. Very loud.
There is a lot. No doubt about that. All right. So, yeah, go up to Hamilton Heights High School and see Fulton. I was at Tipton when I did that. It's, again, now November or so ago for the musical Elf. JMV, no March for Arch. DJ will be just a little better than Anthony Richardson, and the Colts will not be at the top of the draft. DJ is a waste of money. It's better spent. Play AR, and then you're on the march for Arch. Which, Brian, I will say this. That goes by basically every path they've taken so far. Well, with the exception of the path they had when they selected 4th overall, and that's what we're dealing with presently. That's pretty funny. You're probably right. Yes.
It'll be real awkward if Arch doesn't end up being nearly as good as everybody is already anointing him as being.
He is very anointed, isn't he? Very anointed. That's what everybody is talking about, though. Matt Miller joins us coming up tomorrow. We'll talk NFL draft with him. And there's been some talk. We brought this up with Stephen Holder yesterday about some Sanders conversation at 14. There's no truth to that, is there? First the slide, and then talk about that with Matt Miller coming up on tomorrow's show. Carroll Stadium with the Indy 11. I will be there. Hopefully I see you out there. And on Friday, or check that, on Thursday on the road as well. So busy. I'm actually next Wednesday going to be the MC of an event at Marion University that features Speedway and IndyCar prez Doug Bowles. I did see, and a lot of you have pointed to, I watched a lot of Long Beach on Sunday, but I'm assuming I was an exception to the rule because on Fox, that did not get a big number. Now, again, it was going up against a lot of stuff, including the Masters, and in the past 25 years, that was one of the more legendary Masters tournaments, or at least final rounds, as it will go down in history. But the numbers were better than what we saw at Long Beach a year ago when it was on USA. But that was a year ago on USA, where I think the last time USA Network got a big number, it was like Up All Night with Rhonda Shearer, was it not? You guys remember that? Up All Night with Rhonda Shearer. She had a big rack and like introduced horror movies back then. James, no? That's what we're down with entertainment-wise. We were all digging Elvira. Now, around here was Sammy Terry, but it was Rhonda. Everybody watch Up All Night with Rhonda Shearer back in the day?
I haven't heard that, but I have heard of Elvira. I know who Elvira is.
Mistress of the Dark. Yeah. So, yep, give us a big rack and a horror movie, and we were down back in the 1980s.
You're saying horror, right?
Horror. Tomorrow, Carroll Stadium, I'll explain. We'll come back with you. Final time coming up. Tony East, Greg Rakestraw, and we talked to Bobby Buckets, too. Bobby Riddell a little bit earlier. The podcast, 1075thefan.com. Sit tight.
with JMV.
It takes him a second to get on the stool because he's under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier the Reds and Mariners from Great American later on tonight. The Reds activated Austin Hayes, Matt McClain, and Alexis Diaz. It's good to see you right there. One of the greatest yacht rock song of all time would be the late Jerry Rafferty and Baker Street, everybody. Yeah, you're asking on Saturday night. It's a whatever weekend, so I'm assuming we had BT Do that said last week you need to do an entire show on the 1970s. I don't know if we'll do one in its entirety on the 70s, but we can do a lot of it in a whatever weekend. We can actually, I can do whatever I want, so we can do whatever you guys want. And that's what dictates the terms on Saturday nights on B105.7 is whatever you want. So we can certainly play that role. But back to the Reds, 8-8 on the season, getting the Mariners tonight, and Austin Hayes, Matt McClain, Alexis Diaz are activated and ready to go. Gordo says Elvira was a smoke show. That is absolutely true. Cody says, when are you coming out to the Dirt Yard? The Dirt Yard, I believe, is the wiffle ball complex that our good friend Brendan Dudas has been over the years constructing and been a part of. That is awesome on the south side. The Dirt Yard. Now, I will say this, it also takes away on those that pick up basketball with us on Sunday mornings, which is a detriment, but I do get it. The Dirt Yard. Thank you, Cody, for that. I do have to get by there sometime. I watch the way that they play wiffle ball there, and it seems like there's a lot of standing because nobody ever makes contact. Does anybody ever make contact with a wiffle ball? Like we threw off-speed pitches, but, I mean, you did make contact. Like, I watch these, like ESPN, the Ocho in the summertime when they've done the wiffle ball championships, and nobody ever hits anything. It's very familiar as me growing up. Like nothing, no offense. I don't even know why you're in the field because nothing is ever hit out there. But I will, Cody, have to make it out to the Dirt Yard at some point. Lamar Wilkerson from Sam Houston, now a member of the transfer portal class of 2025, and that first class of Darren DeVries down at IU. That was reported a little bit earlier today. Lamar Wilkerson. So I believe right now, do the math on this, IU fans, they have 5 right now? 5 on the team? Just go from there, just play 5. 5 on the team. And still putting together that class. Via the transfer portal, it seems like that this thing is, I don't know if you call it interesting. I guess that it is. Now, it's funny. You kind of look at what you would be talking about college basketball-wise. Yeah, I'm assuming some recruiting situations or who's going to end up deciding to take a shot and, at least check their talents, get evaluated going to the NBA. And I've always said this, that this may not be entertaining to many, but there are some out there where the off seasons and specifically free agency is more entertaining than the actual play itself. And I'll be honest with you, I think this is one of those moments in college athletics and that of basketball where there are a lot of people more entertained by the transfer portal because, honestly, how many of these dudes, like you've seen the Sam Houston guy play before, other than just the highlights you're going to find in social media on X? Probably not. It is just the aspect of free agency to some, and I think you'd be surprised at the overwhelming number, more entertaining than the actual season itself. The transfer portal. Greg Rakestraw about that a little bit earlier. Bobby Riddell, Bobby Buckets also earlier, and Tony East. Round 1 between the Bucks and the Pacers. Game 1's at 1 o'clock coming up on Saturday. 12:30 coverage begins right here on the Fan. Busy show tomorrow, Carroll Stadium, Indy 11, Miami FC. Former Richmond High School standout, Notre Dame, and NFL running back Vegas Ferguson, I believe, is on the show tomorrow too, right? Matt Miller, ESPN. We'll talk NFL draft with him coming up on tomorrow's show as well. James, great job out of you. Thank you, Cluster Truck and Evan, clustertruck.com. Promo code FAN, $25. Check that, $5 off a $25 order or more. That's clustertruck.com. See you at the mic tomorrow at 3.